Dear friends, contemporary Jesuit education is undergoing a lot of changes. Jesuit educational changes are happening very specifically because of the cycle of global colloquiums, global gatherings. We had the first global gathering in Boston in 2012, which identified and stressed on the need for a strong global network of Jesuit schools. Again, we gathered in Barcelona in 2014 for a depth level reflections on the same theme of Jesuit education as a global network, which we call CPEI 2014. And in that gathering, we have come out with an action plan. And after that, in 2017, we gathered in Rio, in Brazil, for another important educational gathering of the delegates of education from across the globe. And in these meetings, we discussed, debated, and discerned for the future of Jesuit education. This year, we came together for another colloquium. We call the second colloquium. After Boston, the larger gathering happened in Jesuit Global 2021, which was very special in many ways. Number one is that it was a global gathering through online. Around 500 participants from across the globe came together for several days of intense discernment. And we discussed various aspects of Jesuit education in depth. In order to help us, we had 4 strands, 4 important talks on specified themes. In fact, the whole global gathering was centered around the theme called Discerning for a Hope-Filled Future. Discerning for a Hope-Filled Future. The vision statement came out after the Global Gathering 2020 is very well articulated, and it is so significant for every Jesuit educationist because it proceeds from the 4th UAP, that is Universal Apostolic Preference. How do we accompany young people in the creation of a hope-filled future in our education apostolic ministry? It also discussed about the question posed by Father General Father Arturo Sosa SJ in his opening address to us. He said, I quote, "What type of education for the present and the future do we need so that our students are educated as people for and with others involved in the construction of the new world? One that allows us to see all things new in Christ, as Ignatius of Loyola learned." We discussed these in depth because we believe we have a very important mission in the field of education to fulfill. A 4-fold mission of Jesuit education today. The colloquium posed 4 stands for us to reflect upon. We looked at educating for faith. Educating for faith is the cornerstone of Jesuit education. We are part and parcel of the church, and therefore the first universal apostolic preference that asks us to go and delve into the depth of relationship with God. So how do we educate as inclusive but distinctly Catholic schools in an increasingly secular and multicultural and religious world? That was the first thing we discussed. Educators must have faith explicit by showing students the way to God through the spiritual exercises and discernment. These are our treasures. Teachers must help individuals to develop a personal faith perspective, to guide them beyond the usual knowledge transaction of schooling and bring them to faith situated within the community. By placing faith within the community context, students and teachers alike can fulfill their mission to glorify God in all things. And therefore, teachers must model consistently of word and life. There should not be any dichotomy between their actions and their words, so that the students will follow them, and there will be a balanced way of relationship between humanity and the environment. This is our focus area. And the second strand we discussed seriously was educating for depth, because we acknowledge that we are living in a superficial world. Everything is oversimplified and superficial, where consumable information is easily accessible, critical analysis and reflection are lacking, and education exists in a profit-oriented capitalistic state. In this context, Jesuit educators must educate for depth, both themselves and for the students. There should be skills to help to navigate the complexities and challenges and predicaments of our contemporary context. This is what we mean by educating for depth. And this is closely associated with the Ignatian principle of discernment. We need to reflect, discern where our life is truly centered, to welcome and trust the new life wrought by discernment, and to let the genuine demands of love guide one's choices. And that's our purpose. The third area we discussed, that strand 3 we discussed, was considering the today's context, educating for reconciliation. In a world that is increasingly fragmented and polarized by religion, culture, ideology, etc. GC 36, that is General Congregation 36 of the Society of Jesus, identified that we need to immediately reconcile with God, reconcile with humanity and with creation as its current mission. Through this lens, we connect to issues of marginalization, human rights, and environmentalism, and we become agents of reconciliation. We cannot go on exploiting the world and destroying the world, because this world belongs to the future also. By examining our own basis and reasons of fragmentation, and model a respect for diversity, question fragmentation, and collaborate on community-wide approaches to educate for reconciliation, our classrooms can become sanctuaries and our schools a field hospital. I quoted from the vision statement. The vision statement says, we need to cultivate a safe space for healing, especially for students who are excluded, and take strong actions against injustice. To develop a culture of repair, conflict resolution, forgiveness, and reconciliation within and outside the school community. We need to re-establish relationship to justice through discernment, developing preventive reconciliation actions rooted in love, and form reconciliatory pedagogy in schools. This can only be accomplished in a safe and healthy environment, free from any form of abuse. Our schools renew once again our commitment to a culture of safeguarding to create the conditions for future learning to succeed. This is very important. We see there is problems all around us, and therefore focusing on this, creating a safe environment for our children to grow. To create a safe environment in our schools is so important for us. And the fourth strand we discussed was educating for global citizenship. In a globalized world, we realize that we are all interconnected. We are all interlinked. We are all interdependent. And therefore, educating for global citizenship is a very important need of the hour. Global citizenship reminds participants of their commitment to care for creation and walk with the marginalized, so that through our diversity, we become more deeply connected. The vision statement says, this mindset helps to identify and realize our interconnectedness, interdependence, and common responsibilities for the planet and humanity. It calls for us to orient ourselves towards understanding, accepting and celebrating the diversity of the world. We must recognize that we are in a diverse world, and diversity is the beauty of our life. We must accept, rather than increasing the regionalism, religious fanaticism, cultural chauvinism, etc. We need to develop this interconnectedness, interculturality, etc. Educating for human excellence for a hope-filled future, we look forward to have our education aiming at the 4 C's which we have identified and articulated in the CPA, that is, to create persons of conscience, compassionate, committed, and competent. We follow this in every aspect of our educational endeavor. Therefore, the 4 strands deepens that the 4 C's might mean for us today. Persons of competence today are persons of depth and discernment, capable of attentiveness to the world and committed to doing the hard work of studying and reflecting to guide their actions. They are able to reflect deeply and transform their ideas into action. As agents of change, they will be prepared to face the challenges presented to them, grounded on love and faith. Today's persons of compassion are agents of reconciliation, willing to be engaged with those who are excluded and willing to pay the price in caring for the earth. They are willing to unlearn their own prejudices and intolerances and become students of forgiveness and love. And when we talk about persons of conscience, in this 21st century are persons of faith who find God in all things and are therefore willing to dialogue with others, not excluding anyone, respectful and appreciative of different religious traditions and worldviews, seeking what is true and good, while remaining committed to one religious tradition and worldview identified as their most fruitful way to God. The 4th C, that is persons of commitment, today are global citizens who continuously seek to deepen their awareness, of their place and responsibility in an increasingly interconnected world, both locally and globally. Those who stand in solidarity with others in the pursuit of a sustainable earth and a more humane world as true companions in the mission of reconciliation of justice, and committed to building networks to collaborate with people from diverse backgrounds to address today's global issues and problems. My dear friends, the contemporary Jesuit education has brought in a lot of depth in educating our people, looking forward to the future with great hope. I am sure this colloquium is going to be a landmark colloquium for Jesuit schools. We continue to adhere the principles set by St. Ignatius of Loyola and all the documents of last 500 years, especially in the year of Ignatius, that is Ignatian year, this year. We take this colloquium as a beacon guiding us to walk forward in our educational endeavor. Thank you very much, and God bless all of us.